Welcome back to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. The lead development is a new 6-kilometer artificial island at Antelope Reef in the disputed Paracel Islands. China has completed the first stage of construction, adding a wharf, a harbor, helicopter infrastructure, and enough land for what could become a runway longer than 3 kilometers. Beijing says facilities on its South China Sea outposts support civilian functions such as research and weather monitoring. The final military configuration is still unknown. The physical change, however, is already strategic. A long runway could support surveillance aircraft, bombers, air defenses, and sustained patrols farther south than China's bases on Hainan. A protected harbor could serve Coast Guard, naval, and logistics vessels. Analysts also see the site as a possible support point for ballistic missile submarines operating from Hainan, especially if China wants a more protected bastion in the northern South China Sea. Vietnam contests Chinese control of the Paracels and opposes the project, but China now has another durable fact on the water. The method is as important as the infrastructure. Reclamation proceeds in phases. Civilian explanations remain available. Each completed stage creates a new baseline that regional rivals must choose whether to challenge. A limited response can normalize the buildout, while a forceful response can look like the party escalating after the island already exists. This is strategic construction with a built-in political advantage. Antelope Reef also connects several Chinese priorities that are often discussed separately. It can improve surveillance across the South China Sea, provide depth in a Taiwan contingency, complicate Vietnamese operations, and support protection of submarine routes. None of that means an attack is imminent. It means China is accumulating options for blockade support, patrol persistence, dispersal, and deterrence. Those options change what other militaries have to monitor and what they must plan to neutralize during a crisis. China is using a similar sovereignty argument in artificial intelligence. The Foreign Ministry says countries should choose AI partnerships according to their own conditions and development needs, and that Beijing opposes dividing the world into technology camps. That message responds to a reported American effort to build an exclusive AI coalition and pressure partners to avoid a competing Chinese framework. Beijing's pitch is simple. Washington demands alignment, while China defends national choice. The harder materials story sits underneath that rhetoric. China designated data as a factor of production and has pushed local governments to release, standardize, exchange, and monetize public data sets. A new American Commission report says this system can improve industrial and embodied AI by feeding models real-world information from manufacturing, robotics, logistics, transportation, and administration. It can also strengthen intelligence and military applications. China's competitive advantage may therefore come from the scale and organization of operational data, even when individual models do not dominate every benchmark. That model also reveals a tension inside the idea of digital sovereignty. Beijing offers other governments freedom to choose partnerships, but China itself uses strict localization rules and state-directed data institutions to shape what foreign firms can do. For many countries, the appeal will depend on practical benefits: cheaper systems, access to Chinese infrastructure, and fewer political conditions. The risk is that adopting one technical ecosystem gradually locks in standards, data flows, maintenance relationships, and political dependencies. The economic backdrop makes the technology push more urgent. Markets expect the central bank to leave benchmark loan rates unchanged for a 15th month, with the one-year rate at 3% and the five-year rate at 3.5%. July activity and credit demand were weak, yet banks already operate with very narrow interest margins. Another rate cut could squeeze them without convincing cautious households or private companies to borrow. China's 10-year government bond yield has fallen to about 1.67%, the lowest in 13 months. Investors are moving into sovereign debt because private demand looks soft and safe assets remain attractive. Policymakers appear more interested in fiscal spending and directed support for infrastructure, advanced manufacturing, and strategic technology than in a broad monetary rescue. That can keep priority sectors moving, but it risks widening the distance between globally competitive technology firms and consumers or private businesses that remain unwilling to spend. Diplomatically, Foreign Minister Wang Yi has arrived in Seoul at a moment when the Korean peninsula is unusually fluid. The United States and South Korea have shortened their major summer military exercise. Washington wants renewed contact with Kim Jong-un, and President Lee Jae-myung has proposed talks among the parties to the Korean War. Wang will meet Lee, the foreign minister, and the national security advisor. Seoul also wants a Lee-Shi summit around the November APEC meeting in Shenzhen. China can support talks without accepting American terms. It can encourage lower military pressure, insist on a political settlement, preserve North Korea as a strategic buffer, and remind South Korea that Beijing remains indispensable. The visit also gives China a chance to pull Seoul away from tighter American technology coalitions. In that sense, maritime construction, AI diplomacy, and peninsula diplomacy all reflect the same approach: create leverage early, frame China as necessary, and make other governments negotiate inside a landscape Beijing has already changed. Finally, the tightly managed funeral of former Premier Zhu Rongji shows how the party handles its own history. Zhu helped curb inflation, restructure banks and taxes, reform state enterprises, and carry China into the World Trade Organization. Many citizens remember his blunt language and anti-corruption reputation. Authorities honored him while tightening security and limiting public discussion that could turn nostalgia into criticism of today's centralization. The official story keeps Zhu inside party continuity. His achievements become proof that loyal leadership can modernize China, while his independence and candor receive less attention. That balance matters because today's economy again needs confidence and adaptation. Beijing wants the legitimacy of reform, the control of centralization, and the strategic reach created by state-directed technology. Antelope Reef is the physical version of that formula. Build steadily, control the narrative, and leave everyone else responding to the new terrain. Thanks for listening. Keep your maps open, your sources skeptical, and your notifications on. For the written brief, find us at restrictedhandling.substack.com. See you tomorrow.